Good evening, everyone. I'm reconvening the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee meeting for this evening of March 21st, 2023. The first bill we have up this evening is that of Representative Pinto. Chair Pinto, if you'd like to come forward, we'll be working on House File 2321. Would you like to speak to your bill first, or would you like to have the A4 adopted?
I'm inclined, Madam Chair, to have the A4 adopted, if that's okay with you. And I'm happy to describe it if you'd like, or...
Yes, if you would, please, that would be great.
Certainly, yeah. So it kind of catches up. So this bill's been heard in several committees and sort of catches up to some pieces that have been addressed in those other committees. Sections, the first page and first two pages, making sure to confirm that when there's a transfer of employees to the new agency, that they have the same protections and be in the same position as they were before, as they are in their current agencies. That's certainly within this committee's purview. There's a report that is beefed up that'll be to us, all of us, next spring, and then some languages about data practices and also the supplemental budget request from the administration to just make sure that the amount of funding is adequate for the job. So that's the A4.
Awesome. So I will officially make the motion that the A4 be before us. Members, do you have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of the adoption of the A4 say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion prevails, and the amendment, the A4, is adopted. Now to House File 2321 as amended.
Thank you so much, Chair Klevorn and members of the committee. House File 2321 contains the administration's proposal for a Department of Children, Youth, and Families. What it really is it's a sort of spin-off of the Children and Family Services Division of DHS, for the most part, along with a couple of, along with a part of MD that works very closely with that portion of DHS, the early learning services area there, and also a small office within Department of Public Safety that works on juvenile justice issues. This has been a long time coming. There have been a number of proposals through the years to do something similar to this to make sure that we're putting kids and families at the center of the budget and of our work. And so I had the one Minnesota budget in front of me, but the center of our work in our state. And I think it probably makes sense, Chair, to just have a presentation from my testifier to kind of walk through why this came together and why it's in front of us.
Thank you. And would that be Aaron Bailey?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome to the committee. It's good to see you. If you would please state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Good evening, Chair Klevorn and members of the committee. My name is Aaron Bailey, and I am the Executive Director of Minnesota's Children's Cabinet. The Children's Cabinet, housed within Minnesota Management and Budget, refers to the convening of states commissioners around children and youth. I'm excited to be here today to present this proposal to create a new cabinet-level Department of Children, Youth, and Families through a planned transition process. The proposal reimagines state government by providing an opportunity to better center children in our state government systems. I'll be presenting today with Bobby Burnham, Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Education, over the Office of Teaching and Learning, Tiki Brown, Department of Human Services Assistant Commissioner over the Children and Family Services Division. They currently oversee the programs proposed to transfer from both DHS and MDE. I'm also joined by incredible colleagues from Minute, Admin, and some other state agencies with us as well. Along with the Children's Cabinet leaders from across the enterprise, we have really co-led this decision process to propose a child-centered agency, and we've developed the scope and transition office and plan to get it right. Our presentation will include a brief background, overview of the history, and the proposal. We are excited about the moment we are in, what is possible. If we want different results for children and families, we need to do things differently. The why behind this proposal is the 1.4 million children who live in our state. 1/3 of these children live in lower income families, and they are the most racially diverse age group in our state. Children are a priority in Minnesota. They are our future, and our overall competitiveness and well-being depends on their success. Yet we do not have a cabinet-level agency who has the job of focusing on this population and the challenges before them, their families, or their communities. The programs and systems that support them exist within other structures with many competing priorities. For years, and in some cases decades, we have heard from the early child community that there is a need for a dedicated agency. We have heard that some agencies are too big to have this focus. We have heard that young people need a clearer voice. We've heard from legislators that there needs to be a clearer front door for these services and programs. Families, local service providers, and community leaders have been asking for better coordination, for engagement, for culturally responsive programs that meet children's needs throughout their development. While the administration has doubled down on this work, listening, learning, leveraging our children's cabinet and its leaders to center children in decisions and improve coordination, we've had learnings from governance reports, OLA reports, cross-agency work, and other states. The case for additional alignment is clear. It's time for Minnesota to create an agency that is centered on children, similar to the governance structure of over half of our states. There's a history to build off of and learn from in Minnesota. In 1995, the legislature established the Department of Children, Family, and Learning. The department was created to replace the Department of Education. It had a broader focus and encompassed the K-12 education in its scope. In 2003, the Department of Education was reestablished and programs were distributed back to their home agencies. Yet we continue to hear from challenges lifted up by families and communities, and a 2010 task force recommended a cabinet-level Office of Early Childhood. The Office of Early Learning was created. We believe there are learnings from this. The proposal before you is different, and it is more in line with other states across the country. Over the last 4 years, our state has built an action-oriented cross-agency tables focused from prenatal to young adulthood, driving coordination and problem solving. We've received a federal preschool development grant that started with robust engagement to develop a family-informed statewide early childhood strategic plan. These efforts and more have built for the moment of now. And with feedback and partnerships and strong alignment across our leadership team in the state, we believe that it is time to move forward across this coordinated continuum as other states are. Related to the governance of children's programs, there are three models: consolidation into new agencies, consolidation into existing agencies, or coordination. States are moving, as I said, across this more child-focused agency, some more specifically to early childhood, others with more of a whole family approach. Washington State is one consolidation model that we have examined. The state consolidated across a broader spectrum of children and family services with a law in 2017. These transitions to consolidation have streamlined focus and presented opportunities for innovative services. Recent work with MAD outlined what is needed for successful governance change, with careful attention to planning with dedicated staff and resources and time, proposed thought-out work that we have proposed in our transition office, engaging with leaders and securing buy-in, and determining funding and resources needed. Considering this, we put together this proposal for a new Department of Children, Youth, and Families with a transition process and timeline that provides the resources and time to get it right and to adapt with all of you. I'm going to transition to the specific proposal. The why, as I alluded to, the governor and lieutenant governor are proposing this new structure to enable a recognizable public face, a clear front door in the state's quest to prioritize children, increased opportunities to maximize and coordinate funding, to align outcomes, and to convene leadership, and to sharpen the focus of our current agencies. In accomplishing this why, our leaders agreed to hold principles related to a whole family approach, to consolidate early childhood programs, to ease access, and to improve equitable outcomes. The core programs and structure of the agency focuses on the elevation of Children and Family Services Division at DHS, combined with the Early Learning Services Division and youth investments from the Department of Education and the Department of Public Safety. The list of core programs for transfer was thoughtfully identified with a focus on consolidation of childcare and early learning programs, family-focused community programs, economic support and food assistance programs, and youth opportunity and older youth investments. The bill language obtains the necessary authorities to establish and operate this new agency. With a 2-year transition team in place, a new commissioner on July 1 of 2024, and a transfer of core programs over the next year beginning on that date. None of this is immediate on July 1 of 2024, and the bill language and existing authorities allow for adjustments to the core programs, which I will speak more specifically to just a second. The bill funds an implementation team and a transition fund, obtaining authorities and resources to support the creation, alignment, and launch of a 2-year process. The transition office will be established on July 1 of this year and will be responsible for leading the establishment of the new agency and planning for the transition of programs to it, including elements related to budget, finance, legal, human resources, IT, and many other functions. The governor's revised budget recommends $2.3 million in fiscal years 24 and 25, and just more than $7 million in fiscal years 26 and 27 to support the creation, starting on July 1 of this year. July 1 of 24. The funds will be used for an implementation team and transition fund over the next 2 years, direct expenses at the Department of Human Services to prepare for the new agency, and a new executive team. For reference, here is more detail on the programs moving from the Department of Human Services. They're listed in Section 15, Subdivision 2 of the bill. As Chair Pinto said, this includes the entire Children and Family Services Department, with the exception of certain housing grants and administration programs within the Economic Assistance and Employment Supports Division. The proposal also includes licensing and program integrity functions from the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Human Services for child care and related CFS programs. From education, the programs proposed to move are all those under the Early Learning Services Division, as well as an after-school grant program. The Office of Youth Justice from the Department of Public Safety aligned with the focus to move upstream, focus on prevention and youth supports. I'm going to end by stating the obvious. This proposal seeks to answer questions and feedback heard for years from families in Minnesota. But in order to do it right, we need a robust engagement process. We need more specific discussions with families, local service providers, including schools, tribes, and others, counties, and others. And the way to do that is through dedicated time and capacity. And that time is now. When we have a network of leaders who are ready to engage, believing that this exercise is important for our state. I'll now pass it on to some of those leaders. First, Assistant Commissioner Burnham to speak about the impact of the proposal.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the committee, and if you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Good evening, Chair Klevorn and committee members. My name is Bobby Burnham, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Minnesota Department of Education. After years of working both inside and outside of government, mostly focused on the goal to ensure coordination and access to early care and learning programs that support successful transitions into the K-12 system, I am thrilled we are at this point of proposing a child-focused agency with a key principle being consolidation and coordination of early childhood programs. Through recent efforts funded by the legislature and administrative efforts like the Race to the Top grant, the Early Childhood Systems Reform effort, the OLA report on early childhood, and most recently the work of the Children's Cabinet and the Preschool Development Grant, the state has made significant progress in coordinating and aligning early childhood programs, and we've heard the needs related to the governance shift. Through these efforts and engagement, we believe in building on our progress by consolidating early childhood programs, resulting in improved outcomes for children, families, and the workforce, improved coordination for providers, aligned funding prioritization, and a common application or front door for families. We look forward to continuing to engage our community members, educators, and program administrators in this process and the transition. I want to acknowledge that we have received feedback from our early childhood special education partners regarding the transition of one of their programs, Part C. Part C is listed as a core service that would move to the new agency under the proposal. This would change the state-level agency responsible for the state-level administration of Part C from the Department of Education to the new agency. This does not change Part C administration at the local level. We are not proposing any changes to how these services are currently delivered or who delivers them. Creating a new state agency with the purpose of better aligning programs will not change a district's collective bargaining agreements, and the amendment presented today helps address that. There is no proposed language that would change who is defined as the service providers for Part C. We've made significant progress for better coordination in our early childhood system, and we believe shifting governance of programs will build on that progress to improve service delivery, support the workforce, and, most importantly, better ensure our young children thrive. Now I will pass this to Assistant Commissioner Brown to speak about additional opportunities with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And welcome, Assistant Commissioner Brown. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Klevorn and members. My name is Tiki Brown, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Children and Family Services at the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Thank you. Okay. Having worked at within state government for over 20 years, one lesson I've learned is that for a population or an initiative to be a high priority, it needs a clear champion and a shared vision, especially when it comes to cross-program or cross-agency coordination. The opportunity before us to establish this new agency and provide transformative funding to advance opportunities and equity for children and families is an opportunity to make a positive impact for generations to come. We are in a unique moment where leadership is aligned around centering children in their decision-making and genuinely believe that this new agency will provide sustainability of funding for the state to prioritize children and their families. Leaders with significant experience both inside and outside of state government in running effective programs, change management, and driving outcomes and progress are supportive and ready for this change. DHS takes equity and outcomes for children very seriously, and often the structure and competing priorities prevent the prioritization and representation needed to elevate the needs of children and families internally within the agency, at the legislature, and with our community partners. A new agency would sharpen the focus on children and the work of DHS itself. Specifically, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families will enable the creation of a sustainable central state vision to ensure Minnesota families are able to reach their full potential. The agency will provide the leadership and coordination needed to support children and families by valuing and implementing research-based multi-generation approaches, focusing services for adults who play key roles in the lives of children as a source of meaningful, equitable impact. It will prioritize economic and food assistance programs so every child has access to culturally relevant opportunities to help them learn, grow, and thrive. It will provide coordinated implementation of a unified statewide network of community resource centers. This agency also includes creating the structure needed not only to maintain our IT systems that support essential children and family programs, but the authority, collaboration, and leadership structure to transform these systems in an ongoing way to ensure that technology enables coordination of services, whole family, whole child approaches, while making programs easier to operate for our local government and community partners. We know that transitioning our systems into this new structure will be challenging, and we know from experience in cross-agency IT projects that consolidation and prioritization are essential to programs. Including the full spectrum of age groups of children also means that we prioritize youth and focus on upstream connections with youth rather than costly downstream public safety and corrections. Combined with the historic funding decision before us, this new structure is timely. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families will be uniquely positioned to support the historic investments for children, youth, and families that the governor has proposed. We have the opportunity to boldly act in this moment, leading on previous engagement, research, and work that other states have done, because our state depends on the success of Minnesota children, youth, and families. The creation of a new agency can achieve a clear front door and recognizable public face, improve communication outlets that focus on children and their families, coordinated and maximized funding, aligned outcomes for children and families, and improved access to services. We have a plan to take our time, do it right, and continue to listen and engage with agency staff, our tribal and county partners, and our families. Combined with significant investment in children and families, this new department will create a shift that Minnesota needs to ensure that equitable outcomes for children occur from birth to young adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Representative, our Chair Pinto, do you have any other testifiers there?
I don't believe so. I think there's a member of the community member who's going to testify, but maybe it was on from a public
I have
side.
two members.
Oh, okay, I guess. Learning about my own testifiers.
All right, if you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Yes, good evening. My name is Teresa Barr, and I am the owner and director of Early Advantage Developmental Child Care Center in Byron. I'm excited to be here and share how transformational a Department of Children, Youth, and Families would be for me, my families, my teachers, and every child I serve at my center. I've been in this industry for over 15 years, and navigating all the systems we're expected to in an increasingly financially strapped industry has grown worse and worse each year. It has become nearly unbearable. The hassle of working with so many different organizations simply to complete the work of providing early childhood education is daunting. Just for collecting tuition payments, we work with 8 different agencies. Every child that lives in a different county means we have to work with that specific county to get child care assistance reimbursements. Then if they are getting scholarships or funding through any other source, we have to go through each of those different sources. In DHS alone, we engage with many parts of the department, including background studies, child care assistance, licensing, multiple counties to collect payments, parent aware and develop, as well as the Department of Health, DEED, and the Department of Education. If we have a child with special needs, we might work with another handful of organizations, such as Help Me Grow, an education district, such as ZED, a local school district, the Center for Inclusive Childcare, and outside therapy services. I counted the number of different organizations my program works with just to provide basic services to our children, families, and staff, and I quickly came up with over 20 organizations. The point is, it takes a lot of time and money to navigate all these different systems. In our program, and I would imagine many others in the state of Minnesota, it takes multiple full-time employees to manage, connect, and communicate through all these systems. If even half of this was placed into one department, imagine how much time and stress that would save providers, who would then be able to actually focus on providing high-quality child care and supporting their teachers. Yes, this comes with a small cost, but the cost of the continuous decrease in providers across the state of Minnesota is multitudes greater. We already have a workforce shortage in Minnesota. With an ever-increasingly challenging system, we will continue to see providers decide it's just not worth it. As the number of providers continues to decrease throughout the state, how is that going to help parents with young children be able to go to work? We love what we do. We want to continue the important work we do, but the headaches and struggles and frustrations that are brought on by the web of agencies we must navigate are relentless. Please create a new department that keeps children, families, and providers at the forefront. Creating this would be a transformational way to streamline decision-making power in our system, allow us to have a permanent seat at the table when it comes to state budgets, and ensure high-quality programs are under one roof in Minnesota. So I hope you hear our plea and help our industry not only survive, but to thrive.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We're
Thank you.
very appreciative of your being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Members, I don't see any additional amendments. We will go to member discussion.
Madam, I don't know if there's a public testimony, Madam Chair, but
I don't see the other person who's here, who is on the list. So
pardon me.
thank you very much.
Pardon me, Madam Chair.
That's all right. Members, Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Klevorn. Representative Pinto, I just have I think a couple of questions. So as a former county commissioner, I know frequently that things change at the state and the impact that it has at the county level, because I do hear from the workers. I don't know if this question is for you or maybe for one of the department heads. Will the counties see any kind of a savings, whether it's their local levy or a streamline of services that benefits the workers at the county level?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, when I was asking about the public testifier, the person I had in mind is from Association Minnesota Counties. So I wonder, she may be able to shed at least a little bit of light on that, or at least the perspective, county perspective on the proposal, and answer your question as well with the Chair's permission. And I'm not sure if that's, but she may be able to provide county information
I will say this to everybody who's here tonight. I know this is an important topic, and we're all very focused on making sure that we do it well and do it right. We have a full agenda this evening, so I want to make sure that we answer the questions fully, but also move on to the other pieces of legislation we have with us.
It may be, Chair, then it may be that somebody from the administration may be a better source than me to answer that question about county savings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bailey.
Chair Klevorn and members of the committee. I'm not sure that we know that yet. I think we are having really important, there is a lot of important dialogue that is necessary with the counties. Would love your perspective as a former commissioner as well. And we have a meeting, even several meetings this week coming up with counties. I don't know that we can speak to knowing exactly the budgetary impact for counties at this point.
Thank you very much. Representative, one more, please.
Yeah, okay.
Representative Harder.
Yes, that'd be great to know more about that. The other question that I have, and I'm not sure if it really pertains to this, but many counties use the nurse-family partnership. And will this have any impact on that delivery of services?
Please proceed.
Yeah, Chair Klevorn, representative. That program is not specifically included listed in core services. I did touch on the existing authorities, and the language allows for a process for additional programs based on that feedback and that transition time. But that would not be specifically included in this proposal.
All right, thank you.
Lead Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to either the author or the testifier. I know that there are employees that are in multiple places that are likely to go to this new entity. And I'm hoping, Chair Pinto, I'm hoping that as we do that, we're gonna have sort of a map or a chart as to who goes where and how is salary carried from one place to the next and reapportioned. And it's going to be a lot, I'm sure. So I'm hoping you can allay any potential fear that we might have as to how are you doing that? Have you done that, or is that something yet to be determined? Because what I'm hoping does not happen is that we take a quarter of a person away, as I know we do sometimes, and then leave it behind, and that just is going to wind up growing our budget even more than the forecast that we got today is growing our budget. So please help us understand that.
Chair Pinto.
Ms. Bailey.
Ms. Bailey.
Yeah, Chair Klevorn, Representative Nash, thank you for the question. This is why we've planned for a thoughtful process and transition time. I think I speak on behalf of all my colleagues here to say that we share that goal and prioritization, certainly thinking about staff and leaders and how essential they are, and making sure that we create that space. Obviously, that sort of unwinding and planning is complicated with staff, and we need to get that right and not leave sort of fractions of FTEs. I will say the legislative language includes specific employee protections, and we've built that in partnership with our leaders and conversations with the unions to make sure that we get that right.
And Madam Chair.
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the author, I guess, are there, because I think there's some federal money interaction that goes on here. Is there, have you thought about allowances if that money is not appropriated again at the federal level? Because as we all know, the feds can be a little, unpredictable, unreliable, might be a good word as well. What happens to the funding that comes from the feds if that goes away for this program?
Chair Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Representative Nash. So I guess the proposal itself is not conditioned on federal funds. So the programs that will be transferred, some of them do, or some of them have heavy interaction with federal funds, but that would be true, absolutely. But that'll be true whether they would remain in the current agencies or move to the new agency. So that shouldn't have an impact on that in terms of either way, we'd be in the same boat in that way. But either way, we want to make sure the programs are interacting with one another as effectively as possible, and that's the idea being the new agency.
And Madam Chair, just very, very briefly.
Last one. Please,
That,
go ahead.
but you're creating a whole new agency, and that's sort of like when I talk to people about relying on LGA. It's a very ephemeral thing, and if you build a budget predicated on something that is or could be considered ephemeral, and then that does actually go away, the new agency is left holding the bag, and are we going to potentially cut things at the agency or jettison that? I mean, I think you understand where I'm going with this, that federal money may evaporate, which may put this new agency that is thoughtfully being put together, according to you. What happens if that goes away? And I know that if it happened when they were separated, there's impact, but now you're building a whole new agency with people and a commissioner and, you know, rental space and building space and all of the things that go into it. But if that money disappears, I'm sure that problems ensue that you may not be anticipating from what I'm hearing.
Chair Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Representative Nash. And maybe this is worthy of longer conversation because I'm still trying to have my head catch up on it a little bit. I mean, you know, there are significant federal funds in this, as there are in a number of parts of the budget, but there are very significant state funds, you know, state funding to this as well. And even if the federal funds go away, we still have to protect, protect children, child protection. We still need to do the work of the different parts of this agency either way. And so I think there'll still be a great value in having programs that relate to these areas be in the same agency. But again, I'm very happy to continue this conversation because I had not really thought of it that way before you raised it, and I'd like to continue.
Thank you. And Representative Bonner, oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Hewitt, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question, Madam Chair, but I do have a statement. Representative Pinto, I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done, the governor's office and the agency and the council that have put this work together, as I am starting a very similar course to what you've done with another situation that we need to look at. I can understand the hard work that you and your team have put into this, and so I really appreciate that, and I look forward to supporting you as you get closer to the final subject here.
Thank you. Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chair Pinto. I think you know that I am a big fan, inside the IT world and out, of people-centered design. And, you know, it also is no surprise to a lot of you in this room that I have been very passionate about early childhood endeavors and development. And, you know, I think that one of the things that struck me when I first came to the legislature and started, particularly in the early childhood space, is that it often felt very fragmented. It felt like the focus was all over the place, and it was not always where it should be on the children and the families that we should be serving. These are our future Minnesotans. They are our future economic engine. They are our future business owners, our future workers, our future families, our future moms and dads. And so I really love the idea of this and putting a new lens where that is specifically focused on children and specifically focused on those families to really be able to have a more person-centered approach. And so for that reason, I just want to thank you for bringing this proposal forward. No doubt, as we've alluded to here today, it will not be an easy endeavor. It'll take some work and lots of hard deliberation. But if the goal is here, again, to get those children at the center of that lens, I think it's worth it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Representative Bonner. And Executive Director, I thank you for being with us this evening. Chair Pinto, I'll let you close up, and then I'll renew the motion for the bill.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thanks, Chair, for your time and expertise that you brought to this, and thanks for the discussion to all. It's a big endeavor, I think a worthy one, and certainly be eager to have your support. Thank you, Chair.
And with that, I will move that House File 2321, as amended, be re-referred to Children and Families Finance and Policy Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The motion prevails, and you are on your way to Children and Families.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members. Thank you.
Next, we will have an informational hearing. Representative Kraft. And I'm just going to ask the people who are moving in the audience to please do so as quietly as you possibly can. Thank you. Representative Kraft, welcome to the committee. We are here to discuss House File 2677. If you would keep it short and concise and awesome, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Great to be here. I want to provide a little global context to this because yesterday the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change put out a pretty important report. and I'm quoting from it, said that human activities, principally through emissions of greenhouse gases, have unequivocally caused global warming. Global greenhouse gas emissions have continued to rise with unequal historical and ongoing contributions arising from unsustainable energy use, and land use change, and that's my emphasis there. The other thing that it says is that climate change is a threat to human well-being and planetary health, and there is a rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. The situation requires us, at all levels of government, to think differently and build climate considerations into all our systems, all our existing systems. So I'm happy to be sharing House File 2677 to this committee. Thank you for the informational hearing. Appears things got a little backed up after this was re-referred, which is why we don't have the here to you right now. This bill is especially focused at our transportation emissions, which is now the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. The bill seeks to translate our statewide greenhouse gas emission targets into the transportation sector and recognizes that in order to reduce transportation emissions long-term, land use is a, if not the, critical component. So a brief summary of the sections of the bill. Article 1, Section 1 is where we have MnDOT that will be required to establish benchmarks for statewide greenhouse gas emission reductions and allocate them across the transportation sector, with a special call out to the metropolitan area. And Article 1, Section 2 will require the Met Council to create a regional climate action plan with a special focus on land use and vehicle miles traveled, and then embed climate components into comprehensive plan content so that they can be part of the next comprehensive plan cycle. Amendment language coming will make it clear that no standalone climate action plan will be required, and based on input from Met Council and Metro Cities, will remove the overly prescriptive nature of the current language so it can fit within the existing comprehensive planning process. Article 2 requires the Met Council to conduct a land use study so results can be included in the next round of comprehensive plans. The study is about how land use and transportation policies interact relative to environmental, greenhouse gas emission, and equity goals. And finally, in Article 3 is where these greenhouse gas emission targets from the Article 1, Section 1 from MnDOT are put into action. And it requires MnDOT to consider greenhouse gas emission targets as they undertake capacity expansion projects. It's not so much the purview of this committee, but I tell you just to have the full picture. With that, I will pass it over to my testifier.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. If you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony, please.
Very good. Thank you, Chair Klevorn and Representative Kraft and members of the committee. My name is Sam Rockwell. I'm Executive Director of Move Minnesota, and I also teach courses on both land use regulation and transportation policy at the University of Minnesota's Humphrey School and Urban Studies program. So this bill is right at the intersection of my interests. As you know, and as Representative Kraft stated, transportation persistently remains the highest greenhouse gas emitting sector in the state of Minnesota, and in fact across the United States. And transportation sustainability requires that Minnesota both electrify and reduce vehicle miles traveled, which means how much we drive. And reducing vehicle miles traveled requires strategies that bridge transportation policy and land use planning, because how much we drive is influenced by the shape of our community land uses just as much as it's influenced by our transportation networks. So right now, Minnesota has statewide goals to reduce both greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. But these reduction targets are just goals. And this bill before you today creates a structure for actually meeting those goals. In effect, this bill is about bringing accountability to the promises the state has already made to Minnesotans. The portion of the bill before this committee will ensure we understand how transportation and land use impacts greenhouse gas reductions, and it will establish a clear path to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and VMT in the metro, and importantly, the comprehensive plan structure that Representative Kraft mentions. This year will be this time around will be targeting 2050, a particularly important year in that intergovernmental panel on climate change framework. It will also infuse climate considerations into local land use planning so that local community efforts and programs are coordinated with neighboring jurisdictions and across the region. The emissions impacts of land use and transportation are intertwined, as are their joint impacts on access to opportunity, family and municipal pocketbooks, health, and more. The bill brings land use and transportation planning together in service of an environmentally and financially sustainable and equitable future for all Minnesotans, and in service of keeping the promises our state has already made to its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And we do have another testifier here this evening, Patricia Nauman, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome, Executive Director. It's nice to have you with us again.
Thank you,
If
Madam
you'll
Chair.
if you'll state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Happy to do that. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Patricia Nauman. I'm the Executive Director of Metro Cities, and Metro Cities does represent the collective interests of cities in the metropolitan area at the Legislature executive branch and also the Metropolitan Council. So the association does take a very keen interest and has a lot of nexus with the work of the Metropolitan Council. So I appreciate certainly the interest by Representative Kraft in this issue, and Metro Cities has certainly worked with Representative Kraft when he was a city official, and we know of his passion and interest on climate change and issues. So Metro Cities does have concerns with the legislation. We have been talking about those concerns, and I just maybe would like to outline the fact that the language would be set under the Land Use Planning Act, which is in law, and it's fairly broad. It's not very specific. It doesn't tend to list really prescriptive or specific requirements. The concern that we have is that by setting prescriptive requirements under that Land Use Planning Act, it does set more or less a one-size-fits-all mandate for metropolitan area cities with respect to their local plans, and would basically impede potentially the work that does go on between the regional government and local governments with respect to addressing the needs and circumstances of individual cities with respect to any comp plan requirements that are basically determined every 10 years during the regional planning cycle. So we are concerned again that by having a more or less pretty prescriptive mandate under that Land Use Planning Act, it would upend those regional and local processes that are currently underway and underway every 10 years. So I just want to also note that local plans are submitted to the Metropolitan Councils for the purpose of ensuring, the Metropolitan Council's role is to ensure the orderly growth of the region. Local comprehensive plans must be consistent, basically must be consistent and conform for regional systems, for the provision of regional systems such as wastewater and transit. One of the concerns that we have is that by putting the climate resiliency content under the Land Use Planning Act, it essentially potentially sets up climate action plans as a regional policy or a regional system. And Metro Cities policies are very explicit in the need for any system to be pretty fully vetted and have an established funding source and really fully considered before that occurs. Again, I just maybe want to finally note, Madam Chair and members, that regional requirements are determined in collaboration with city officials so that local capacities and needs can be accounted for. Over 76 cities in the last round of comp plans did include a climate resiliency plan or content in their plans without any state or regional requirement. And so I know that might not be enough for, it's basically half the cities. I just maybe would further note that a lot of work is underway between the Metropolitan Council and city governments in terms of setting up requirements for the next round of plans, and we'd certainly be happy to have further conversation about how cities and the council can work toward these goals more directly. So I will leave it there, Madam Chair, members, and I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
always
Happy to
appreciate your
answer.
testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, we can take a few questions. It's an informational hearing. Members, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start. I've got a couple of questions. So this bill is really targeted towards the Metro, and thank you, Representative Kraft, for bringing the bill. Thank you for having a conversation with me yesterday on the floor. I appreciate, your willingness to engage in conversation on this, and I know that you're passionate about this topic, and I hope to be helpful, I guess. So this bill is very targeted towards the Metro. And just in Article 1, can you tell me what the target reduction in greenhouse gases would be that you would be shooting for? Is it you want to decrease it by 50%, 100%? So number one, what is the target that the benchmarks, that are kind of in line 1.11 are referring to? And what other options would a metro have? You're an expert in this. And what other options would a metropolitan region have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
Representative Kraft.
Madam Chair, Representative Nadeau, so it's irrelevant what I would want. What the bill says is what the state has already adopted and committed to, right? And so on the books right now is the Next Generation Energy Act from 2007, which says we need to reduce our emissions 80% by 2050. There are some other bills here to accelerate that, which I support, but this does not state here are the goals that you must do. The states reference what the state is already committed to. So then your next question was, what would it mean? What would be what would be options for the metro area? I'll also say, I should also back up a little bit. There's a part of the bill, the MnDOT part of the bill actually seeks to take those emission targets on a transportation level and feather them out around the state based on which region, with some acknowledgement to there may be some places that have more ability to reduce emissions than others. Places with more density have more ability to do that. Within the metro area, in terms of what kinds of things a city or the region can do, well, it's pretty much anything you can think of, broadly on climate, renewable energy, energy efficiency, waste, dealing with waste better. On the transportation side, certainly things like electrification, land use, how we set up our systems to make it easier to not always use a car. Also, things like
Representative
Yeah,
Kraft, if I can just ask
Yeah.
you to pause there.
Sure.
Do you have a follow-up, Representative Nadeau?
I do.
All right, I will let you go to your follow-up question, and then I'm going to ask you to keep your answers
Yeah, thank you,
concise
thank
because
you.
we have two more bills we still need to
Apologize.
get through. Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Representative Kraft. I thought that's where you were going to go, and I appreciate that. And the metro area has done an enormous amount of work using CIP funding, using grants, putting solar panels, building bikeways. I mean, created all kinds of opportunities to reduce that. And so, what I was ultimately wondering if you were trying to get to an 80% reduction from what 2007 or an 80% reduction from today. And I get it that maybe this will be addressed later. So I'm going to move on to my second and follow-up question. We'll let that one sit, and we can talk about that one later. It has to do primarily with Article 2 is land use. The Met Council is a bit of an anomaly right now with the things. I mean, what it started out doing 50 years ago was fantastic. It was meeting the needs of a growing region with wastewater, with developing parklands, and then it kind of it solved many of those things. Created a Muciline, really provided some fiscal disparity reductions with tax capacity sharing, all good things. And then all of a sudden, in 1976.
Excuse me, Representative Nadeau.
Yep.
We're not debating the Met Council. Is there a question to Article 2?
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
Article 2 is all about the Met Council.
I realize that, but is there a specific part of the bill that you're questioning?
I'm questioning how the Met Council, basically in 2015, the Met Council did something similar. They did it with a housing plan. They basically came up with, with some goals and some things for all the communities to meet. And the problem with it was there wasn't any money. There wasn't any money. So we identified this issue, and we identified the Met Council and communities spent an enormous amount of money trying to figure out how to deal with it. And so I want to know how this is going to actually be effective. It wasn't effective with the housing plan development, and I'm wondering how you would change it so that the climate action planning done by the Met Council through the system statements forced on to, this is a mandate, mandated onto local units of government, would implement effective climate action planning.
Thank you. Representative Kraft.
Madam Chair, so So I'm not familiar with the 2015, so I can't speak to that. What I can say is that by having clear target system level approach that the Met Council creates, and then giving them the flexibility to work in their comprehensive planning process to build that in the manner they see fit. We've taken out the prescriptive language. Prescriptive language. It's a process that has worked on the comprehensive planning process for decades, and so we're plugging into that in a way that we think is have the maximum impact.
Thank you. Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and there's a lot that we could go in on this, but just a couple quick questions since it's an informational hearing. Number one is the cost. If you could talk a little bit about the fiscal note. I know that a lot of the cost is absorbed, but those are still costs that we could potentially recognize and put additional burdens.
Is there something specific in the fiscal note you would like?
Yes, on page 3, line 4, the total cost absorbed just to the council is over $4 million.
Representative Kraft.
Madam Chair, but you said that's an absorbed cost, which means it's stuff that they're doing already.
Thank you. Representative Koznick.
Well, then to one of the testifier, Ms. Naumann's point is we kind of don't need this because it's already being done. But it's still, if you think differently, those are still actual cost and time of current employees that are going to be drawn off of other missions that we have them do. But kind of a little bit to Representative Nadeau's point of the effectiveness of this and doing all these planning and requirements and working at it. Let's say you realize the goal of your intent, however you would measure that. There was a comment made about coordinating with other jurisdictions and that there's a lot of people in this world. Even if you met your goals, I would question how much would it really change climate change? And do you have the power to make Wisconsin go along with this? Iowa, all the regions, other countries. And so sometimes we get well-intentioned on this, and I wonder if it would actually make much of a difference in the end.
Thank you, Representative Koznick. We'll go to Lead Nash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And there's a lot here, but I will be brief. And I'll first point out that Ms. Naumann and I don't always agree on everything, but I have tremendous concerns on this. And a lot of it comes from being a mayor previously and having gone through the painful effort of doing a comprehensive plan with the Met Council. At the time, they said, well, Mayor Nash, we're seeing that Waconia is going to constrict in growth by the time your next comprehensive plan is growing, and that was completely not factual. And when I pointed out to them that we were growing, they said, oh, we'll pencil whip our model for you. So I have grave concerns over the developments of models. And what I look at in your subdivision 2 in the land use plan, Representative Nadeau actually stole some of my thunder. In 2015, they did a land use study for housing, and we are now in a metro and statewide housing crisis, in some part, due to that. So when you're dealing with as many cities in the metro area as this bill would prescribe that you do, you are now either going to go over the top of other elected bodies and force them to do something, or you're going to have tremendous pushback like they got from the city of Waconia on things when I was mayor. So that's my one concern. Second concern is that we are putting a tremendous amount of faith in an organization that has made several really big OLA reports as showing that they have no ability to provide oversight on something that is of a humongous nature. This is, while it's a handful of pages, this is an amazingly consequential bill that you put forward, and I have zero faith that they would be able to get this done. Given that this is informational only,
Please.
I'm going to hold my fire until such time that it comes back. But this is so cumbersome when you realize how many interacting parts there are that make up the cities that are in the metro area. I'm a watch collector. I love looking at the different pieces of going into the watch. All of those little pieces that you see in a watch are kind of like the cities in our metro area. They all have to work together very, very well. And on something like this, it's not. So you may have people in the downtown area that are overjoyed and potentially very encouraged by this. I live almost at the terminal end of the 7-county metro area where the Met Council, and we don't subscribe necessarily to everything that's being proposed here. The comprehensive plan is an adoption of concerns also from cities. We're not hearing the cities' voices. Ms. Nauman provided some concerns. I'm sure the League of Minnesota Cities would provide concerns as well. This is disturbing, and then I will be done.
Thank you very much. Representative Kraft, we are very glad that you were with us this evening and that you brought your bill forward. Would you like to leave us with some closing comments, please?
I'll be brief.
Those are the most dreaded words from a representative, just so you know. Just a little levity. Thank you.
So thank you for hearing the bill. I believe we have heard some of the comments from Metro Cities and have addressed those in the next revision you will see. That said, I do have faith that this is the correct, and I disagree with you on these things. And I will also say that if everyone took the attitude that, boy, we can't address a tough problem because they're not, then we would never make progress. So I prefer to be much more positive in my thinking. Thank you.
And I appreciate your commitment to our climate, and I appreciate your commitment to our state. Thank you for being with us this evening. Next on the agenda, we have House File, let's see. We have me. All right, and we will do House File 2427, the capital area. Okay.
5 minutes for each bill.
Perfect. Good to see you. Right. Yes. If you would.
Chair Klevorn, please move your bill.
Thank you very much. I move House File 2427 to be re-referred to the Economic Development, Finance, and Policy Committee.
Chair, I see you have an amendment.
I do have an amendment.
Could you please move it and tell us about it, please?
Okay. Excuse me, just one moment. May I approach?
Oh,
That'll
sorry,
fine.
you need your paperwork? You have the A. Okay, A3 first. Yeah.
Realized I picked up the bill, but I didn't pick up my notes. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair and members, it's great to be with you this evening. I'm just going to do a little bit of background, and then I'm going to hand over the testimony to Executive Secretary. So the Capital Area Architecture and Planning Board.
Chair, do you want to move your amendments first?
All right, I can do that. Thank you
Please.
very much. We'll move to the A3.
Go ahead and tell us about it.
I move the A3 be before the committee. A3 amendment, it refers to the Ford building and the site redevelopment. And this amendment requires the Commissioner of Administration to prepare and approve building construction plans for the redevelopment of the Ford building. But it must have plans for mixed-use development and identify ground level space for locally owned businesses. That's the key component of this amendment.
Are there any discussions to this amendment? Representative Doe.
I just have one question. If this is, if the city of St. Paul doesn't want mixed-use development there, I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know anything about how this works.
What I'd like to do just a moment is go back and before we really dig into the A3 or the bill, just give a little brief background on what the CAP board is. I think it'll be very helpful to the committee because many people don't know what the CAP board is.
Chair, go ahead.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I was going to cover that.
Okay. We're going to do things in a little bit of a different order, so if you'll just help us.
It's your committee.
Okay, thank you. It's our committee.
Can you let me know if you're able to see a slide up there? Thank you. Yeah. This threw me last time, and you can't see my talking points, right?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I'm Merritt Clapsmith, and I'm the Executive Secretary for the Capital Area Architecture and Planning Board. The CAP Board roles and responsibilities are shown to you on this slide. We are a board of 12 members, and we have oversight of 60 blocks called the capital area. The CAP Board oversees planning, land uses, and design of public and private spaces and projects. The capital area has its own comprehensive plan as well. But we don't have to file it with the Met Council.
Okay, let's go.
We're going to change that.
We don't need to bring that up.
You need to deal with that.
Okay, now if we can
Yes,
bring a
let's
little
continue.
bit of order back to this now. So the underlying bill itself is for the capital campus design framework. So it is going to be allowing them to put a capital complex framework together. The A3 amendment deals with one of the buildings that will be in this district area, and that is the Ford Building, which is an abandoned building across the street of University Avenue. And so it says, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the Commissioner of Administration may not prepare or approve building construction plans for redevelopment of the Ford Building unless the plans are for mixed-use development and identify ground level space for locally owned business. That's the sum total of the amendment.
That was your A3. Representative
A3.
Neto, before I call on Representative Nash, did you get what you needed?
That was perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Nash, for your go ahead.
And I'm going to try to help the chair here, just to add some clarity. The state owns the Ford Building.
The state does own the
Which
Ford
was
Building.
may not be known by everybody. So the state is owning that. My question to the A3 is, you want to develop the ground level for locally owned businesses. Would that be as a rental relationship, or what's the proposal for that? So if you're developing it for locally owned businesses, who is the state the landlord, and how does that get done? Is there, I won't use JPA, is there a joint powers agreement that has to be done with just maybe help us out with how that would work?
Chair Klevorn? That's right.
To executive secretaries.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Most likely it would be a lease from the state. In unique circumstances, buildings can be condoized, and so you can have a portion that has one owner and a portion that has a different one, but the expectation is that it would be a lease from the state.
Lead Nash, follow-up?
No, well, I like the building. I wish that it wasn't empty for decades, I believe. It's kind of pretty from the outside. But I am encouraged that we're looking at that, and I'm very familiar with the capital area because I serve on the Capital Area Security Commission. And I think that redevelopment of that is good. And I hope that we can make the businesses work. It's a very European model to have businesses on the lower level, and then have other things going above it. So I think it's an interesting use, and would love to know. I'm sure you'll get to the costs of all this, so
We will.
that'd be great.
So, hearing no more discussion on the A3, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The A3 is adopted. Madam Chair, you have a A4 amendment.
We do have the A4 amendment, and somewhat in conjunction with the A3, this is a Capital Area Community Vitality Task Force. And this task force would be established to look at, so the purpose of the task force, let's just go to that for just a moment. The duties of the task force must consider and develop recommendations for the administration, program plan, and oversight of the capital area community vitality account, which will be established also in this amendment. And it will report back recommendations to the Capital Area Architecture Planning Board, to the chairs and the ranking minority members of the committees of the legislature. And so it is to look at how we make this area economically vivacious, I guess is the right word to use. And that is what the A3 will do. It is putting together a community vitality task force. And the appropriation since I know that'll be asked, is $5 million, and it will be established by a special revenue fund appropriated to the Commissioner of Administration. The CAP board will, the task force itself will have $150,000 to do its work, and then what their recommendations would be done out of the special revenue fund, and that is the A4.
Lead Nash.
It just about fell the last time. So, Madam Chair, $5 million appropriation, you're going to back $150,000 out of that for the board or the task force. What does the balance go to?
Chair Klevorn.
Thank you, Chair Hewitt. It's not a balance, it's an and. They're two different numbers. That would be for the work that is out, comes from the recommendations of the task force.
Lead Nash, follow-up.
In a way that it sounded kind of circular, and I'm not saying that it was purposely circular, but I'm
We'll
trying to
promote-
figure out what is the $5 million going to get us? Is it going to be blueprints? Is it going to be design work? Is it going to be architectural stuff? I didn't hear what that is. I'd really like to know before I might actually vote for
Thank you.
a bill that spends $5 million. I'd like to know what a guy gets for $5 million nowadays.
$5,150,000.
Chair
May
Klevorn.
we please move to Executive Secretary Clapsmith?
Secretary.
Thank you. The 5 million probably would focus primarily on capital investments in buildings and properties to improve them. It could also be used for improvement of public space, art, community efforts, possibly housing efforts, but it would all be focused within the capital area. So it's really a local and community economic development program to really improve the health of this community and its attractiveness. I mean, that it's a great place for the community and also a great place for people who are at the Capitol.
Lead Math.
Yeah, and
Nash.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and then I'll try to be done. So serving on the Capitol Area Security Board, I know that we have many plans that are in place for security improvements. Is this in conjunction with those who are designing those things so that you might come up with an idea and you begin moving it in a direction, but it's in conflict with some of the security initiatives that we've undertaken there to make the entire campus, which is a very large area, more secure? So I'm just trying to figure that out because I believe that there could be some competitive initiatives that are undergoing consideration in this as to what we've done for the last now 9 years, trying to get our campus more secure.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Secretary.
You're good.
Okay, I'm learning too.
You're great.
It's a good question. Addressing safety in the area is going to be one of the key parts of what the task force looks at. And we will be talking to all sorts of stakeholders. And so certainly coordinating with you and other efforts around campus security is going to be really important. I'm a big believer in not duplicating work and trying to collaborate and make things more efficient. So we'll definitely be working with you as the task force to make sure that ideas you have are being advanced and coordinated with things that would be happening in the larger capital area.
Lead Nash, if I may move to the amendment adoption.
I'll just say I'm refreshed that we oftentimes don't hear we don't want to duplicate things in government. So that's a nice concept.
So, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Chair Klevorn, to your bill in the shape it is.
To 2427 as amended, I'm just going to ask Executive Secretary Clapsmith to go through her presentation, and then I think it'll help us as we talk about the bill as a whole. So if you'd like to just continue on with your presentation.
Secretary?
We've got our shtick. So the Capitol Campus Design Framework Update introduced in House File 2427 by Representative Klevorn is also in the governor's revised budget. Cass Gilbert's vision for the Minnesota Capitol focused on the Capitol building as a center point for the city, framed by large green spaces connected to neighborhoods in all directions and providing direct vistas from near and far. Over time, the campus plan has been updated as the city developed and redeveloped. But we've kept the tradition of a central lawn and connected open space. The most recent plan is 32 years old and desperately in need of update. Planning for maintaining the Capitol campus that is attractive and inviting requires analysis of its functions and elements and how they interact. This diagram shows the primary layers of information that will be gathered and then examined by a multidisciplinary consultant team. A great Capitol Mall is built for its users, and public engagement will be central part of the planning work. We will ask things like, what do people like here and how can it be improved? Does the Capitol Mall attract people from 8 to 80 years old and every age in between, and other questions? Some people say the plans are meant to sit on shelves, but this one is not. It'll be written as an implementation manual with activities, roles, and resource needs clearly identified. One of the very first implementation activities will be the planting of trees. The bill also anticipates and identifies relocation of open spaces for public activity. The State Office Building addition encroaches into Leif Erikson Park, displacing park space in its traditional function as a space for civic expression. Under statute, the CAP board must work to protect and enhance open space, essentially a no net loss policy. The bill suggests 2 new open spaces to be created on state land at the northeast and southwest corners of University and Rice. And we just covered the 2 recent amendments, the Capital Area Community Vitality Task Force to improve livability, economic health, and safety of communities in the capital area. And the task force will work with economic development consultants and talk to community members, community development organizations, safety specialists, and research successful example from places similar to the capital area. And we discussed the Ford building. I just wanted to clarify that this is about the Ford building site and really adjacent lot, AA as well. There's contemplation that the whole area will be redeveloped with a new building. The Ford building is currently proposed for demolition, and funding is being sought for that. So this really envisions a new building that would be in that place. That's it.
Thank you. Chair Klevorn, is there any other comments from you, or should I call up anyone in the audience at this point?
I don't know of any other testifiers for that bill.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to testify on this? Seeing none, hearing none, member questions? Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Klevorn. It was an interesting bill. I was, with a couple of the amendments, there was a lot of $5 million projects in here, but where do I start here? I guess I would start first off. So a couple years back, when I was a freshman, first-term legislator, before that, they passed a $300 million renovation to the Capitol and a lot of the work in front of the Capitol. Was some of this just not included in that, kind of an afterthought or a second phase? Because when we talk about this, and this obviously comes with a cost, the taxpayers and constituents are going to want to know what's the interaction with that, so I can explain it to them. So was it an afterthought? Is obviously the Ford building is a separate project, or is this the next phase? Was this planned, or are we just adding on?
Chair Klevorn.
I would ask Executive Secretary Clapp-Smith.
Thank you.
Secretary.
Improvements to the Capitol building and landscaping in areas around it, that was based on principles from the 32-year-old plan. This would be an update of that plan so that any future projects, both within the open space or buildings adjacent to that, would then use that updated plan as a guide for investments. But these investments, they would apply throughout the mall, adjacent open spaces, immediately adjacent to the campus itself. So it's really a very comprehensive study to guide those future investments.
Follow-up, Representative Koznick?
Yeah, a couple things. So there is a comprehensive guideline, and I think that's important to this area. It's a beautiful campus, and there are some challenges with it. And so I think you're addressing, the Ford building and some of the challenges around there. Does the comprehensive plan, what is with the neighboring property of the Sears building, and how does that interact? Because I don't see that on here either, and obviously that's been vacant building for, I think, almost 2 years now. Can you share with that and why that's not included in here, or if it's not, which I don't think it is, what is the plan for that?
Madam Secretary?
Yes, thank you. The Sears property is for sale. It's been marketed by Seritage, and perhaps in the coming months, we will hear whether or not there's a new buyer. The development and public infrastructure that goes in there will probably be a combination of public and private. Typically, the city would consider tools that it might use to assist with public infrastructure. Whether the state wants to contemplate helping with that site it's a future decision. So this capital area fund isn't at this point envisioned as being used in any significant way to support the Sears site redevelopment, but there could be small elements that sort of connect that site to the community that would be part of it.
Thank you,
Koznick?
Mr. Chair. And then just kind of follow up, it's a critical site as we take a look at redoing this building, which didn't get a lot of public input. But so there's an interaction there, and I think there's possibly a missed opportunity. You talked about the Leif Erikson Park area and preserving that park space. On 9.1.19, it talks about visual markers and such. One of the visual markers that a lot of people had interest in was the Columbus statue that was on the other end of the mall. Are there plans to reincorporate that somewhere?
Excuse me.
Representative Chair Klevorn, I think you might want to take that.
Yeah, I am going to take this one. We're not going to go down that path tonight. We're talking about comprehensive planning. We're talking about a capital work framework. We're talking about the contents of this bill. And we're talking about creating a space for those discussions to be held at a later time. So we're not going to go down the pathway of the Columbus statue tonight.
Any other questions? Representative Joel?
I just want to make sure that I understand this right. So on line 1.14 of the original.
Representative Nadeau, can you pull the microphone?
Yep, sorry. I just want to make sure that I am understanding this right. On line 1.14 and then on 1.16, it's basically a half an acre on the southwest corner of Rice and University on the other side, correct? South, okay. And then on 1.16, it's a half acre on the northeast corner, which is where the Ford building, that parking lot is, right? Half an acre there. Okay.
The records show that the witness said yes.
Yes.
The
So-
testifier.
Sorry.
I'm just curious as to, and then the rest of it is basically, which I think is great. We're gonna build this shade canopy. I think it'll be wonderful. I'm just curious, those two parcels. Why those two parcels, and especially on the other side of Rice Street?
Secretary Clapsmith?
Pardon?
You're up.
Yes, thank you. The kind of no net loss policy, that came into discussion early this year. The Speaker of the House and other leadership and staff at admin closely read our comprehensive plan for that area, the Capital Rice area, and recognized that the displacement of open space had to be covered in some manner as part of the state office building project, and those were areas that were proposed because they're both owned by the state. And the idea was that they perhaps could be small areas for kind of welcoming, gateway, interpretive signage about the community itself, about the Capitol. And then on the the northeast side, that space would then be complemented by that ground floor mixed use, so that you don't just have some odd little space, but it actually is sort of going from public to quasi-public private to the building itself. So that was the rationale, but, you know, ideally, we would have had more time to figure out the space, but it's kind of connected to the rezoning of the state office building.
Representative Nadeau, a follow-up, or?
Nope, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no other, sorry, Representative Bonner.
Just a really quick question, because I think maybe I lost track somewhere in the discussion here. So the Ford building, we are keeping the building and repurposing the space with businesses underneath, or we are demolishing the building and building a new building?
Secretary Clapsmith?
Yeah.
Which
That's
one?
right, go ahead, please.
The Department of Administration has a request for funding for demolition of the Ford building, and I believe that's being reviewed this legislative session.
Representative Bonner?
Just a curiosity question, because I'm curious. Do we know how we came to the decision of demolition versus restoration and repurposing? Just curious.
So
Representative Klevorn.
Representative Bonner, that was done prior to this legislative year, that decision, and we can get back to you on how that was done.
Wonderful. Seeing no other questions on the committee, all those in favor? Sorry. We have to renew your motion.
I'll re-renew my motion that House File 2427, as amended, be re-referred to the Economic Development, Finance, and Policy Committee.
I should have let you close too. All right. See, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? On your way you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope you. Right.
Chair Klevorn, please move your bill.
The next, the next file before us is House File 2940, which is the governor's budget bill, and I refer my motion is to refer House File 2940 to be re-referred to Ways and Means. And this is going to be a staff review of the bill. And so I would ask that our House nonpartisan researchers, Matt Gehring and Chelsea Griffin, walk through the bill. And my question is, do you want to stay where you are, or would you rather sit here, or what would you prefer?
They're moving their mics. Please identify yourself for the committee and continue with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, Matt Gehring from House Research. I would probably stay here, and I think I might defer to Ms. Roberts to start with the appropriation.
The appropriation part. Right, Ms. Roberts.
Madam Chair, could I just ask a clarifying question about level of detail that you want in the walkthrough?
No, I think we can just go through, everybody's had an opportunity to review it. It was posted on time and it's been there. So if we can just do a high-level walkthrough, and there will be a DE at a later time.
Ms. Roberts.
Madam Chair and members, I don't think you probably want me to walk through each appropriation. I do have a spreadsheet that I will get to the committee tomorrow, which I think is an easier way to look at appropriations. But just in general, the governor's bill includes appropriations for the legislative branch, for the constitutional officers, and then a number of smaller agencies. You'll see some, for example, this bill has the Campaign Finance Board in it, but as you know, that is actually under the jurisdiction of the Elections Committee. Also included are the appropriations for some of the major administrative agencies, Minute, MMB, Administration, and the Department of Revenue. And that gets you probably through about page 13. Also included are appropriations for the Gambling Control Board and the Racing Commission. And then again, the ethnic councils, some of the occupational or licensing councils, the Historical Society and Humanities Commission. And so that's just sort of a really high-level overview of somebody. If anybody has questions, I'm available. Again, I will have a spreadsheet that I think will lay this out more clearly for you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. The next part?
Mr. Chair, then the next article of the bill is Article 2. The policy language starts on page 19. And I think instead of going section by section, I'll just say generally that these are all the policy items that are included in the governor's budget request. And many of these sections, including Section 1, come from bills that you've seen previously. So Section 1 is part of the new department from Representative Pinto's bill that the committee has already heard. Let's see, Section 4 on page 21, there's a series of sections that amend the process for the existing compensation council to establish salaries for state constitutional officers as well as agency heads. The change here would, instead of requiring the council to make recommendations, the council would actually prescribe salaries that would be mandated by statute. So there's a series of sections that include that change running through section 9. And then there's, starting on page 24, sections 10 through, let's see, really sections 10 kind of through the rest of this article, I'd say page 28 and 29 are all sections that are within Department of Administration provisions that the committee has seen previously as part of their technical bill. Highlight on page 33, section 28, which is a section that this committee hasn't seen before, grants for cybersecurity to county and local governments. And there's, again, going forward in this article, a series of these sections that come from Representative Pinto's bill to create the new Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Starting on page 38, there's a long series of sections related to the way the Department of Administration and state archaeologists interact with cemetery sites in the state. This is language that the committee has seen in previous bienniums, and but is new to this particular year in this committee. On page 45, there's a Office of Small Agency Studies that this committee has, I believe, heard previously from the Department of Administration. And then sections 37, 38, and 39 to close out Article 1, or excuse me, Article 2 are sort of fiscal transfers and cancellations that relate to the work of agencies within the jurisdiction of this committee. And then Article 3 is the governor's proposal for dealing with the stadium reserve from U.S. Bank Stadium. And that is the entirety of Article 3. And then after Article 3 is the series of repealers that you see that align with the rest of the policy in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Guerin. Madam Chair, do you have more?
Is there anything Ms. Griffin would like to say? Right.
Mr. Chair and members, no, there aren't any sections that I was planning on highlighting for you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
And with that, members, this is just a high-level overview of the governor's recommendations. Most of these items were contained in the binders that you have had with you all year, except for the new one that Mr. Gehring spelled out for us today. And with that, I would just ask for your support in moving this to Ways and Means, and then we will be coming back to committee to discuss the authors of my bill. This is the governor's recommendations, and then we will put together our state government finance committee bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see we have 2 testifiers.
And if you'd call them forward, please.
Kristen Swanson, and on deck, Peter, I'm not saying your name, sorry. And if you could state your name for the record and start your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Hewitt, and thank you, Chair Klevorn and members. My name is Kristen Swanson. I'm a development officer with Minnesota Public Radio. I'm here to talk about line 10.31 of the bill. This is a request for $1.02 million for Minnesota Public Radio for an equipment grant. Thank you to the committee for our current funding of that same amount. And thank you to the governor for including our request in this bill. These funds help support MPR's infrastructure to provide the backbone of the emergency alert and Amber Alert systems, offsetting some of the system's expenses. With more than 80 stations and translators across the state, NPR signal reaches 95% of the state. All of Minnesota's radio, television, and cable broadcasters, more than 300, rely on and monitor NPR's radio network 24 hours a day. Our staff works with these media partners to ensure the system is operating correctly and troubleshooting when problems arise. We know if our equipment fails, all of those other systems are affected. Our staff also provides other supports for the system, including sitting on the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System Board with state and local officials to continue to improve the EAS system. But none of the state funding we receive goes to any staff salaries for this work. Funding goes only to our Greater Minnesota radio equipment and only to that which is essential to the EAS and Amber Alert systems. We have a flat funding request because we carefully assessed our needs over the next 2 years and planned equipment upgrades and replacements that we could accomplish in that time period. And it's true that this specialized equipment has not seen the kind of inflation that some other equipment has seen. We budgeted for exactly what we need without any extra. Each year, this funding is split between planned projects and emergency repairs. Winter like this one can be really hard on equipment. I've seen pictures of our housing for our equipment that has holes in it from icicles falling on it. And our infrastructure is now more than 30 years old. NPR matches the state funds we receive. The overall cost for the upgrades to the system over the next 2 years is double our request, not including the staff time involved in maintaining the network. NPR is proud to make this contribution to the safety of all Minnesotans, and we hope that you will fully fund our request to make sure it is ready when we all need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Peter Wotak, I'm going to go for it.
Hi, welcome.
Please state your name for the record and your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Peter Whitetalk with Hunger Solutions, very close, with Hunger Solutions Minnesota. And just, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm just going to highlight the Healthy Eating Here at Home grant, known more widely as the Market Bucks program. So this is the Farmers Market Nutrition Incentive Program that SNAP customers are able to stretch their purchasing power at over 100 markets across the state. We appreciate the inclusion of an increase in funding of $50,000 per year in the governor's budget. We, however, are concerned that at $375,000 per year may be insufficient to effectively run the program due to the rising need and also the popularity of Market Bucks across the state. And that's why we worked on a bill this session that would increase that funding to $500,000 per year, which passed out of the Senate State Government Committee, and we would encourage support for that bill as well here in this committee. So Market Bucks customers, the last thing I'll say is just Market Bucks customers have really come to count on this program to help them afford fresh, healthy food that they want to be able to improve the health of their families, but also for seniors, many seniors across the state that depend on this program, especially right now as food insecurity and food shop visits have skyrocketed across the state. So we urge your support once again for this investment so we can continue to improve the health of our residents and feed people across the state. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitetalk. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this? Seeing none, we will move to member discussion. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, those two testifiers actually covered a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. I am grateful to see that public radio is included for the Amber Alerts in this bill. I think it's Representative Freiberg's language that I am a co-author on because it is an incredibly valuable and essential tool for the dissemination of both emergency alerts and Amber Alerts. I think I shared in committee what seems like forever ago that I was on a boat in the middle of a lake in the middle of nowhere and got an Amber Alert, and I thought that was fantastic. But that doesn't happen if the great work of what's going on there is not seen with some updated equipment, because that's something that everybody gets pushed to their phone, So I think that that's really important. And Madam Chair, I hope that we keep that in the bill. So I'm very, very supportive of that. And I think that that's just a good expenditure of public funds to make sure that for weather alerts and amber alerts that we are indeed alerted to. Secondly, the Market Bucks program, and I had reached out to you earlier today talking about my support of that. And for those that were on the committee a while ago, we actually fought to keep it in the budget. It was actually being considered to be removed. And a number of myself and my colleagues on our side fought to keep it in because I got to see that in action, and I will continue to fight for it to stay in. I oftentimes attend the St. Paul on University, some of the farmers markets there, and I get to see people actually using this, and it's pretty cool. I think that if we can move away from prepackaged foods and pre-processed foods and show people what it's like to buy things, and sometimes if you go to those farmers markets, you see things that you've never seen before. Or in my case, I like making my own hot peppers, and I ate one of the peppers that was there. I don't recommend always doing that sight unseen. You might want to ask questions about it, but the Market Bucks program is incredibly useful for the people in our state. If we are going to do those sorts of things, then I fully support its inclusion in the State Government Finance Omnibus Bill, because I have seen firsthand that folks, the last time I was at that market, there was a mom and had two kids, and they were walking by, and I think she was letting them pick out something that they were going to buy, and it looked like it was based on how vibrant a color the food was, and I thought that was great, because now you get to see a young child dip their toe in the water of some new foods that are literally picked the day before, most likely. And Madam Chair, I really hope that we keep these two provisions that I've talked about in the bill, because we support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, and I'll just kind of speak to the Market Bucks program. Well, both of these initiatives are have been heard in the Senate, and as everyone knows, it's not always easy to hear every bill in both bodies. So sometimes we try to divide and move forward together at the conference committee. The Market Bucks program, I just want to make sure that we're all clear about it. There was not an attempt to ever eliminate Market Bucks. It was to move it into the agriculture and food budget. And because that committee at that time had the word food in it. And so that was the motion to move it. And it is remaining in state government. It has remained in state government. And I, like you, have supported it for the last 4 years as well. So I would just say that about that. And with that, I would renew my motion, Mr. Chair, that House File 2490 be re-referred to Ways and Means.
I'm sure the governor's bill will be sent to Ways and Means. Not yet, though. We have to vote on it. Sorry. Trying to push it. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. It's on its way to Ways and Means. Amendments for the policy omnibus bill are due by noon tomorrow. The finance omnibus bill will be heard next week. With that said, members, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. We are adjourned.